Welcome back to Zygor Guides, your go-to source for leveling up fast and efficiently in World of Warcraft. Today we're diving into one of the creepiest dungeons yet, Ara-Kara, City of Echoes. This sprawling dungeon is filled with extra mobs and different paths, making it a real challenge to navigate. But don't worry, we've got you covered. And as usual, before we dive into the route, let's talk about what tools and group composition will help you out the most in this dungeon. First and foremost, poison dispels are your best friends here. Usually you'd get by with one or two, but in Ara-Kara, the more, the better. Shamans with Poison Cleansing Totem, Mistweaver monks with Revival, and Evokers with their dual dispels are MVPs in this dungeon. Also, AoE crowd control spells like Typhoon or Shockwave are going to help you out a lot, especially for controlling the spider adds that spawn during the first and final boss fights, so make sure you bring those if possible. Alright, now that we're fully prepared, let's kick things off. Mount up and head down the ramps into the webbing. For the first pull, we're gathering a bunch of spiders on top of the first mini-boss. The smaller starved crawlers leap onto players, causing damage and applying a slow. Engorged crawlers, the bigger spiders, cast venomous spit at random players, and this can't be kicked, so you'll need to keep those poison dispels handy. When the engorged crawlers get low on health, they try to explode, so either finish them off quickly or stay out of range to avoid the damage. You'll also deal with jabbing flyers that put pressure on your tank with a stacking bleed called Bleeding Jab. Near the mini-boss, you'll encounter Trilling Attendants. Their Resonant Barrage spell does ticking damage to the entire group, so make sure to interrupt this immediately. And they'll cast Web Bolt, which can be kicked. Now for the first mini-boss, Ixen. This boss is immobile, hanging from a web, and spams Web Bolts on the tank. Occasionally, she'll use a frontal attack called Web Spray. Try to bait this to the left side of the room before moving right. The key ability to watch out for is Horrifying Shrill. If this cast goes off, it'll fear your entire group and pull more enemies, which will almost always result in a wipe. Make sure to interrupt that. Be on the lookout for egg sacs scattered around the platform. If you step on them, they'll explode and leave behind a damaging zone. Keep your distance as you move to the main platform. Next, pull 7 engorged crawlers, 1 attendant, and Nact, the second mini-boss, along with smaller mobs. Nact has the Call of the Brood ability, similar to Resonate Barrage, which needs to be interrupted. Otherwise, expect more of the same Web Spray and Web Bolts. Between you and the third mini-boss, Atik is a new attendant and several flyers. You can chain pull them with Atik, who casts Poisonous Cloud and Web Spray. He'll also spam Poison Bolt on your tank, stacking a damage over time, so interrupt that as much as possible. Once the 3 mini-bosses are down, Avanoxx will spawn on the large platform where you killed the second spider. This boss is pretty simple, but it's all about controlling the adds. When you start the fight, a clump of 4 eggs will appear on the platform. Avanoxx casts Alerting Shrill, which deals heavy group-wide damage and spawns starved crawlers from the eggs. The adds fixate on random players and deal more damage the longer they stay fixated. Your group will need to kite the adds away from the boss, while the tank moves Avanoxx away from them. Everyone except the tank should stack together and move as a group. This makes it a whole heck of a lot easier to gather the crawlers for the AoE crowd control and quickly kill them before switching back to the boss. If Avanoxx consumes a starved crawler, she gains a 50% damage boost for 1 minute. And on higher difficulties, even one of these stacks can be deadly when combined with her AoE. Her Gossamer Onslaught ability deals heavy damage and leaves behind webbing that slows you and deals stacking nature damage. At 5 stacks, you'll be encased in webbing for 10 seconds, so make sure to stay out of the webs. Finally, Avanoxx uses Ferocious Bite, where she leaps to her target and attacks 3 times. The final bite increases all damage taken by 50% for 10 seconds. Keep the adds under control, manage the group-wide damage, and you'll move on to the second area of Ara-Kara. Now after crossing the bridge, stay mounted and group everything up near the first hulking Bloodguard. This pull includes 2 Bloodstained Assistants, a Bloodstained Web Mage, and several Blood Workers, along with the Bloodguard. Focus on the Web Mage, which casts Web Bolt and Revolting Volley. Revolting Volley applies a damage over time and a heal absorb to the entire group. Kick this every time as it's the most dangerous ability in this area. The hulking Bloodguard also has a frontal impale that deals a lot of damage and knocks you back, as well as Slam, which deals unavoidable group-wide damage. The Bloodguards have a 50% damage reduction aura for allies around them, Bulwark of the Weak. Focus your damage into these blood guards before AoEing the rest of the pack down. Watch out for the Sentry Stag Shells, which cast Alarm Shrill. Interrupt these or they'll aggro nearby mobs and summon another hulking blood guard, leading to a fight that you're probably not gonna win. Now, it's time for Anub'zect. This boss is mechanically simple, but requires attention to adds and positioning. Anub'zect will use Impale multiple times, which is a frontal cone attack that should be avoided but isn't lethal on its own. He'll also apply Infestation to random players, which deals heavy damage for 5 seconds. When it expires, it leaves behind Ceaseless Swarm, which are small blue circles that chase players. Avoid these as they stack a debuff that reduces movement speed and increases damage taken. Anub'zect will target a player with Burrow Charge. Use a defensive cooldown because this charge is really hard to dodge, and it ends with a large group-wide damage hit. After the charge, Anub'zect spawns Bloodstained Web Mage. Make sure to kick Silken Restraints and focus it down or cleave it with the bosses. At 100 energy, Anub'zect will cast Eye of the Storm. He'll move to a marked spot, and the rest of the room fills with ceaseless swarms, so you'll need to position yourself carefully. He'll also continue using Impale during this phase, making positioning even more important. Stay calm, avoid the swarms, and make sure the adds don't get out of control. Once you've taken down Anub'zect, you'll be heading deeper into the city toward the final boss. Now, as you navigate the complexities of these challenging encounters, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of mechanics to manage. If you've ever found yourself struggling to keep up with everything from avoiding deadly abilities to mastering complex skips, you might be wondering if there's a better way to enhance your World of Warcraft experience. Well, there is. Meet Zygor, the ultimate guide add-on for World of Warcraft. Zygor isn't just a leveling guide, it's your personal in-game assistant, helping you tackle everything from dungeons to earning gold with ease. Whether you're leveling a new character, optimizing your gear, or strategizing for endgame content, Zygor has you covered with its step-by-step guides, dynamic quest tracking, and even automated gear suggestions. So, the next time you're staring down a tough pull or planning out your next dungeon run, why not let Zygor take the stress out of the equation? Click the link in the description and get access to Zygor today. Now, back to the video. Now, only a few mobs stand between you and the final boss, Ki-Katal. Start by pulling the Blood Overseer. These mobs use Venom Volley, a short cast that deals significant group damage and leaves a stacking damage over time. Be sure to interrupt every cast of Venom Volley. They'll also cast Erupting Webs, which spawn swirlies that you'll need to dodge. After the Overseer, you'll face a Nerubian Hauler, which casts Massive Slam. This hits the entire group with a big burst of magic damage and stuns everyone for a second. This stun can become deadly if you're dealing with multiple enemies, so keep that in mind. You'll also deal with Winged Carriers, patrolling the walkway. These mobs leave behind pools of black blood when taking damage. If you step into these pools, you'll get rooted and a small slime will spawn at your feet. You must kill the slime to free yourself, but any hard crowd control like Chaos Nova and Shockwave will also work. Just before the boss, you'll pull 2 more Blood Overseers. Be sure to catch their Venom Volley casts and dodge the Erupting Webs. Try chaining these pulls together so you're not stuck in combat with single mobs for too long. Finally, we've reached the last boss fight, Ki-Katal the Harvester. This fight revolves around managing the unique mechanic of Blood Workers, who spawn around the edges of the room. When they die, they leave behind a puddle of grasping blood, which roots anyone who steps into it and deals ticking damage. The puddle congeals into a mob, and you'll remain rooted until it's killed or crowd controlled. Use abilities like Kidney Shot, Hammer of Justice, or Typhoon to break yourself out. On higher difficulties, you'll need to rely on crowd controls to escape these snares. You'll need to intentionally snare yourself in the grasping blood when Ki-Katal casts Cosmic Singularity. This ability pulls everyone towards the center. Unless you're a Death Knight with Death's Advance, it's almost impossible to outplay with movement abilities, so snaring yourself is key to survival. Another mechanic to watch out for is Cultivated Poisons, which hits the entire group. Make sure to bring extra poison dispels just for this. The poison deals significant damage and releases waves that can be lethal on higher difficulties. Use a defensive cooldown or get it dispelled to stagger when the waves hit so that you don't get overwhelmed. Lastly, Ki-Katal casts Erupting Webs, a mechanic you've seen before. Dodge the swirlies or you'll take heavy damage and get webbed for 6 seconds. This can be especially deadly on higher keys. The real challenge is when Erupting Webs comes directly after Cosmic Singularity. You'll need to quickly free yourself from the snare and dodge the swirlies to survive this combo. Make sure to stay spread out to avoid confusion when dealing with the grasping blood puddles and the cultivated poisons. Once you've got the rhythm down for handling the grasping blood, dodging erupting webs, and dispelling cultivated poisons, Kikatal will fall. Congratulations, you've just completed Ara-Kara, City of Echoes. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more dungeon and raid guides. Got a strategy of your own or questions about the dungeon? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep leveling up, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy adventuring!